And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Remind everybody to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. And of course, we're talking about some more insanity tonight. Tits out and balls to the wall. This time we're going to be talking about the new year as we try to keep things warm and keep from getting frostbitten. We're going to take a look at the political venue and executive decisions made by people and comments that just generally kind of make you want to go, what the fuck? So let's get into it. We've got the first one here is a liberal woman, a conservative woman leaves a liberal speechless. So let's take a look. Make sure I got everything up here. And of course, the StreamYard link is down there for anybody who wants to come join the panel. Always appreciate commentary on these little short clips that I go through. Kind of see if I'm maybe not seeing things right or wrong. So feel free to hit that link and come on up and join the panel.
Logic flipped back on them never gets old for me.
Are you voting for Trump? Yep. White racist. How? How can you say that? If you vote for Donald Trump, you're a white racist. How? Because you support that man in office. That's not an argument. I'm going to need proof that makes me a white racist. You're going to have to break down the argument. It's not my job to say that.
It's not my job to say that. You're going to accuse somebody of being something, but then it's not your job to say and verify. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, this is the delusion of a lot of people out there that think they can go running around with their mouth and saying stupid shit and then not support it, and then stand there and act as if though they're right and they have support and that the record evidence is what they're saying, and all you got to do is look. So let's see what happens when they flip the script.
You just accused me of being a white racist. You should be able to back that up.
Are you voting for Donald Trump?
I sure am.
That's my proof.
Are you voting for Joe Biden?
Yes, I am.
Then you're a pedophile. No, you're a pedophile. Like to sniff kids.
Seeing the left's
That was a perfect flip of the script. So are you voting for Joe Biden? Yes. And then you're a pedophile. Makes logical sense to me when you look at the base foundation of her accusation, of the other gal's accusation that if you vote for Trump, then you're a racist. There is no foundation in what you say when you say stupid shit like that, folks. It's insanity. So let's take a look at the next one.
Defeated and seemingly angry. The Biden presidency is ending badly. He is tired and defeated and seemingly angry. Tuesday, he said, and I'm quoting now, "Nobody should be able to make money in the stock market while they're in the Congress." Ooh, who do you think that was aimed at? Nancy Pelosi? She and her husband were active stock traders while she was Speaker, and she was the Democrat who pushed Joe Biden out of the race. He never forgave her. So now he sideswipes her with a stock trading ban. The pardon for Hunter.
And I'll remind you folks, when they supposedly pushed Biden out of the race and then didn't follow up with a vote and instead just put Kamala in there, I want to remind you what the Democratic Party did in the background in that no one heard a word about Hillary Clinton. Think about that. That should have been their go-to. Instead, they went to Kamala and pushed Joe Biden out and Hillary Clinton in favor of not giving any votes, but just putting Kamala in place. These people are nothing but puppets. Understand that, first and foremost.
counter. That angered many Democrats. It was broad-based immunity that looked as though it would shield other members of Biden's family. Didn't go down well. His recent clemency announcement included the release of the judge in the Kids for Cash case. That's where a judge put youngsters away in return for $2 million paid by the prison. A bookkeeper was released.
So in case you didn't understand that, that's that Cash for Kids scandal. And the judge was arrested and tried, convicted, and sent to prison within the same prison industry, privatized prison, that he was working with to make $2 million. Unjust enrichment of his own private gain off of kidnapping. And somehow there's clemency. So again, remember, these people are nothing but puppets. And you really don't have any control over what they do. And if you think your vote counts, I think you're delusional. Of course, that's just my opinion, folks.
She had embezzled $50 million from a very small town. Why that kind of clemency on the way out the door of the presidency? The Biden presidency is ending badly. He is tired and...
Why that kind of clemency on the way out the door? Because they pat each other on the back. It's the good old boy club. And that's what they do for each other. It doesn't matter the crimes. The only crimes that matter is when you're convicted of them. The law is for thee and not for me. Let's see what goes on with this one here. We've got Karine Jean-Pierre says 20 billion loan to Ukraine will be repaid from EU's frozen Russian assets. And when we're talking about foreign assets and the control of them through freezing and liquidation and this and that, we're talking about the program of economic warfare that I've mentioned as the Trading with the Enemy Act. And you can read up on this through the Cambridge University Press. They put an article out, A Century of the Trading with the Enemy Act. I urge everybody to read it and find out how the United States is deemed, in fact, and in the public domain through many different sources, not just Cambridge University Press, but that they are deemed the New World Order, and they foment the Trading with the Enemy Act beyond the field of war during times of peace on domestic soil. So it's not just asset control and liquidation of Russia, but any foreign asset to that of the United States, which is a corporate entity. That means even your assets are up for freezing and liquidation. I urge thee strongly to think about this stuff and do your research. Don't believe me, folks.
Play the clip of KJP talking about the money they're giving out. Watch this clip here, folks. Go ahead.
And the president's October commitment, the United States has dispersed $20 billion to a new World Bank fund that will provide economic support for Ukraine.
The New World Bank Fund. It is a New World Order. And they just ordered $20 billion to Ukraine.
The U.S. and G7 loans will be paid back by the interest earned from Russia's immobilized sovereign assets, increasingly putting the cost of the war on Russia, not on U.S. taxpayers.
Bullshit.
After Russia.
So they're saying that they're going to extract the cost of the $20 billion that they sent to Ukraine from Russian assets. Well, where do they have those Russian assets? Do they have them in Russia or do they have them in the United States? And I want to remind you folks that they put the Japanese in concentration camps during World War II as a matter of that very thing, Trading with the Enemy Act to secure assets.
Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine, the G7 made a commitment that Russian sovereign assets in our jurisdictions will remain immobilized until Russia ends its aggression and pays for the damages it has caused Ukraine.
Rob, if you can
Pay for the damages it has caused Ukraine. If it has caused Ukraine the damages, then why is the United States paying it and then using that as a premise to extract those assets to recoup those funds? It's a matter of asset control. That's that legal title, which is for entrance and control. The entrance is so that the asset can be entered into the records of the United States. Again, I remind you of the concentration camps that the Japanese citizens of America were put in during World War II. Okay? The next one is Senator Hawley. Oops. I don't know why they come off with no sound. And this is Louis DeJoy, the postmaster. One of my favorite guys. One of the guys I have deep concern about. As so does Senator Hawley. So let's take a look.
And we should expect that.
Well, I want you to know, and I want you to expect that I hate this plan, and I'm going to do everything I can to kill it. I'm going to try to protect delivery to the state of Missouri, to my rural areas, and I just want you to know, so that we're on the same page, I want you to know I'm going to go to.
And what they're talking about here is the cutting off of rural postal delivery services, so that now people in the country have to go into a town to get their mail. This is the thing that they're talking about. And this is not going to happen. No, 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 no. Not if you want to claim postal roads under Article 1, Section 8 for those taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. No, 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 no. You have to start making distinctions in those jurisdictions that you've already got some kind of supposed territorial jurisdiction.
The mat on this, and I'm going to work with everybody I can across this dais to protect delivery to rural America. And if I have to go down with the ship, I'll go down with the ship, but I'm going to do everything I can to kill it.
Yeah, you won't go down with the ship. If you're successful, the Postal Service will go down.
No, if I'm successful.
If you're successful, the Postal Service will go down. This is fucking total idiocy coming from the Postmaster General. The Postal Service will never go down, folks. The Postal Service, in fact, runs on its own currency. It has its own money, known as stamps. It is an international service. It will never go down.
Well, rural America will get its mail delivered on time, which is currently not. And urban areas will get their mail delivered on time, which is currently not. And we just, who's paying for it? The taxpayers who've been paying for it all along. We just in 2021 gave you a bill that you wanted, Mr. DeJoy, that reduced your liabilities by tens of billions of dollars. And listen, I've been nice to you up until now. But frankly, I'm a little tired of this. We have waited and we have waited and we have waited for better delivery. You've exhausted my patience on this. And I just want you to know it, because I represent a state whose patience is exhausted.
And we should expect that.
Yeah.
And we should expect that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should expect that. We should expect a quality service that is guaranteed. Rain, snow, or shine. So let's take another one. This is Victor Davis Hanson on the Letitia James fraud case against Trump.
Filed a suit and said that Donald Trump had overvalued his Mar-a-Lago residence, which he said was worth about $17 million, and therefore got a loan from the Deutsche Bank that he otherwise wouldn't have. And therefore that was a hit.
So they're saying that he got a bank loan based on a asset that was given a set value, and they're saying that is fraud because the value he stated is not the actual value, that he overvalued it so he could get a larger loan. But pay attention to how this commercial system works with its legalities.
He had committed fraud. The bank in question said they had no problem. They knew exactly better than she did the exact value of Mar-a-Lago. Most people think today Mar-a-Lago may be worth anywhere from $100 to $200 million. Anybody who drives by it can see that. 20 acres with waterfront on both sides. So the bank in question that issued the loan said not only did they have no problem with the assets that were used as collateral, the loan was paid back promptly and with profitable interest on their part, and they would issue another loan again. So
there was nothing wrong, literally, with the private contract that Trump had with the bank. All parties agreed, and in fact, the loan was made and paid before these charges even came about. And they were made by a third party, non-participant. They had nothing to do with the deal. They only heard it after the fact, after the contract was completed. The loan was in fact paid, and then they made a charge out of position as a third-party observer, wasn't even involved in the contract, other than the fact that they're a judge or they have some kind of interest in the laws and making sure that the laws are carried out. And here they made a false claim against somebody else, saying they committed a crime when no party involved in it had suffered a loss, harm, damage, or injury.
that has never been used against a public figure in New York or any figure. Latita
Ever. Because it goes with the normal course of business. I have a motorcycle I want to sell. Manufacturer retail sales says it's worth $1,500. I have some extras. I paid so much for it, and I think the value now is $2,000. Somebody comes along and wants to give me $2,000. That's a deal. It's a private contract. There's nothing that can interfere with a private contract. That's why those kind of lawsuits against Trump are bullshit. Just so you know. And I'm not a Trump fan. I don't vote. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. So let's go on to the next one. Next one, it says, now they're importing it from countries that have zero environmental standards.
Are going home. Californians are going home after a long day of work, and they're charging it after the day of work, and the sun has gone down. That's actually using fossil fuels from the grid to power the electric vehicle. So then I started looking into California and where they're getting their fossil fuels from. Because I'm like, well, if they're getting them from Utah, they must be getting them from other places. Over 60% of the fossil fuels they import come from Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. So they've.
And this is not just California, but it is California that has perfected this kind of importation of certain items to avoid certain restrictions and regulations of law, because they're not regulated in those other countries.
They've shut down nuclear, they've shut down natural gas, they've shut down coal in their own state where they would have done it cleaner than anywhere else. And now they're importing it from countries that have zero environmental standards. Californians are going.
Therefore, the environmental standards of oil coming from Colombia, they don't go through the regulations. So is your oil really any good? Things to wonder about and consider. The next one is Trump wants federal employees to return to office. This is an astounding thing that I don't know if you guys know about, but this is how they pat each other on the back as they're moving out of office and stuff.
Ask the Biden. One of the things I'd like to ask the Biden administration, as you probably heard, there are two events that took place. We're talking about a friendly takeover, a friendly transition, as they like to say. This is a friendly transition, and it is, but there are two events that took place that I think are very terrible. One is that if people don't come back to work, come back into the office, they're going to be dismissed. And somebody in the Biden administration gave a 5-year waiver of that so that for 5 years, people don't have to come back into the office.
Now, think about that, folks. Somebody in the Biden office gave a waiver of coming back to your office for 5 years, meaning you can take like a 5-year vacation. How does that work if you've got a 4-year term or a 2-year term? How does that work? You see the insanity of that kind of shit? It's literally saying we don't want to work and we're not going to work, but you're still going to have to pay us. How does that work where you have a government that takes 5 years off? Or any portion of government that takes 5 years off? I don't understand it. I don't understand the reason or logic. And that shows that I don't care, again, I don't care if it's Democratic or Republican or what political body it is. It shows the insanity of thinking that your vote counts for you. It doesn't.
It involved 49,000 people. For 5 years, they don't have to go. They just signed this thing. It's ridiculous. So it was like a gift to a union, and we're going to obviously be in court to stop it. One of the things I'd like to ask the Biden administration.
Of course, you're going to have to go to court to stop it. You didn't have to go to court to put it in, did you? You see another point of insanity. You just signed a document, and there you go. It's there. But in order to remove it, you got to go to court? Come on. Come on. Wake the fuck up. See what this one is.
She wasn't prepared for that comeback.
But anybody would compare any federal employee, frankly, to someone who the Gestapo or
You on mute, but what up, Wizard?
Greetings tonight, Base. How you doing tonight, brother?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. Just going over some of the insanity of the politics and executive orders we see coming across desks and stuff, and how it's insane to think that voting means you're important somehow when it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've heard. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think we're both on the same page on that. I think we're both, from my interactions with you, see no reason to implicate or imply any stature of another man having authority over you in any sense. And to think that your vote counts in doing so only makes you a bitch-ass slave, in my eyes, in my opinion only.
Yeah, it's amazing to me the energy that, let's say, the lower class, middle class puts into voting and politics. It's absolutely retarded.
Oh yeah, it's especially come to light with the recent years and people wanting to cast their ballot pre-election through the mail and stuff. And you know, it makes a guy wonder, why is it so important that you make sure you get your vote in? And I don't see any reason. I have looked inside and out of everybody else's reasons, and every time it comes back to the point that, in my eyes again, it just seems to me like you're laying your life on the line to let somebody else make decisions for you. Yeah. That doesn't seem conducive to prosperity and abundance in my life, if they're going to make decisions for me based on their prosperity and abundance. This doesn't make sense. So let's finish up with this one, because they're talking my kind of language when they talk to Gestapo. You hear me talking about Hitler's willing executioners all the time.
Running Nazi concentration camps. That is very offensive. I have 15 seconds and I yield to you.
Thank you for saying that. I wish somebody in Democratic leadership would say that out loud. Look, you want to know why there's 50,000 people in detention? You want to know why we have 1 million illegal entries in the United States? You want to know why we have these issues? Because you have failed to secure the border. You have failed to work with this president to close the 3 loopholes we've asked for 2 years to close. So if you want to know why this issue exists, you need to look in the mirror. You have failed American people for not securing the border and closing loopholes.
Mr. Holman,
Look,
please respect the chair and the authority of the chair. The time of
Who let that woman in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, please respect the authority of the chair. Bitch, you shouldn't even be in there if it weren't for the 19th Amendment and the beta cut corporate males that wanted good-looking women sitting next to him. I don't know how good-looking she is. I really don't. But
Yeah,
they wanted these beta cut corporate males that passed that in legislation were the ones that wanted women sitting next to them so they could feel on them because they had to be separated from their wives. That's the only reason you women got your feminist rights, because some men cucked to you.
Yeah, I mean,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I think in part that's how I view it in part. But there's a lot of other parts, and one of them is they really fucked over women directly in putting them, electing them to these positions of authority, quote unquote, or, in the infantry, the military, right? I get it that a lot of gung-ho women were like, yay, we now have equal whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, you're asking for a bad time.
Oh, and they got it.
Yeah. Like, you don't want this shit.
Yeah, they got it, despite the fact that no matter how, and people didn't see this before, which is obvious, but one thing leads to another, because once you had the feminist movement for feminist rights, now all of a sudden you've got these women with their feelers in these legislative places and authoritative places that now bring about the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, because they're in their feelers and they feel bad for the men that aren't included, the gay men. So then you have the gay pride thing. So now we include the women in that as well. And now it's gone even farther. Now we have transgender. And guess what we got now? We have transgender woman of the year. I couldn't even, psychologically, I can't even say woman of the year as a man. It automatically wants to come out as man of the year. But woman of the year was literally a man. And how many sports records in the women's field were broken this year by men?
Yeah.
How many trophies were taken away from women that deserved them in their field by men who wanted to play women?
On the other side, now some people are watching women's sports just for the drama, just to see them get beat up by men pretending to be women. And
but the financial range has only increased a short bit.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the manual form as a man's sport, because more people are interested in men's sports because they're much more violent.
Yeah.
Amazing how the mind works on these platforms, and in reality, it's always seeking that drama.
Well, I remember you being on panel a while back, and there was a woman up there, don't remember her name, but anyways, you were saying, which I agreed with, and I know the whole thing got contentious, whatever, but that in a sense, I'll say you and I think we're aligned on this, we don't want women on the front lines of battle, physical battle, for their own good and for the good of the team. Women are not, on a balance of probabilities, woman is not going to be the same level of combat fighter as a man. It just isn't. Now, there are some women who are definitely better than some men at that. But regardless, what we did, like maybe it's the DEI you were referencing, We incentivized. We told women, we gaslit them, you know, oh, you're not a woman if you don't go and do what men do, which is the most retarded thing.
Exactly. That's that beta cut corporate competitive mind that's deceitful and wants women beside them because they can't compete with real men. It's fucking pathetic, and I don't see why people don't see this. Maybe I'm just over masculine. I don't know.
Well, I think people are mostly retarded. Like, again, balance of probabilities. Most people would be triggered as fuck at this conversation just since I've been on, right? It's sad, but it is a reflection of people, and people have allowed this, and this is why I have a hard time blaming women on an individual or a collective level for this shit. Like, I get it, perhaps they're on the front lines fighting for it, but it's always men enabling the bullshit. Like, that has been it. Like, we could phrase it however we want, but it's always men enabling the bullshit.
Right. It's the guy that does nothing about it that allows the evil to exist. It's the same thing. It's the man that does nothing about making sure that women play their proper and very important roles in those roles and not outside of them.
Yeah. And, you know, at the same time, I do believe women and men should be able to do what they want. Like, if a man really wants to be a drag queen, whatever, I don't care. But the incentivization of it, the popularity of it that's being promoted by the masses, that to me is the sickening part. And then how it affects children and it's being pushed on children. To me, that shit should be illegal with all these fucking laws we have.
Yeah, and to do it on your own private time is fine, you know. Even if it's your own lifestyle and you want to go out to the clubs and be part of the entertainment scene, that's fine. But if it's a private lifestyle, you still don't bring it into public work. You don't come work as a man dressed as a woman. Not in my office, you don't.
Yeah. And as it reflects, you know, from politics, when we see politicians and entertainers doing this, and I get it, the pushback of the masses is, well, they're just people. And I get that aspect, but with more power, with more influence, necessarily comes more accountability. Now, society doesn't hold them accountable. I suppose if one believes in a higher power, then, you know, perhaps we could, you know, get into that. But either way, I do believe people are held accountable. Whether or not it looks like it, I believe inevitably, and perhaps that's the afterlife, you know, whatever.
Absolutely. So let's finish up with this and see what kind of authority she really has.
But the gentleman has expired.
I bet me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
She wasn't prepared.
You work for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely true, folks. If you consider yourself a taxpayer, which they do consider you a taxpayer, whether you are in fact or not, they see you as a taxpayer, and that's the basis of their employment. They are dependent upon the taxpayer. Here we go.
Yeah.
On the faces of the very people that need to step up, and this is 2018 when President Trump went up against the postal union and said, hey, it's time for the other countries to start paying their share. And as soon as they got him out of the office, they went right back to their same bullshit, lazy tactics of not paying their share.
Pieces of NATO allies during this speech tells you everything you need to know.
I have been very, very direct with Secretary Stoltenberg and members of the alliance in saying that NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations. But 23 of the 28 member nations are still not paying what they should be paying and what they are supposed to be paying for their defense. This is not fair to the people and taxpayers of the United States. And many of these nations owe massive amounts of money from past years. Over the last 8 years, the United States spent more on defense than all other NATO countries combined.
The look on the face.
Spent more on national defense than all other NATO countries combined, and that is an effort to protect those other NATO countries that are not paying. And I'll remind you again, folks, taxes are voluntary, and you voluntarily pay them so these other nations can have a free ride while crying that you have to pay taxes, which is bullshit. Understand how this system works, and you can help control it by not doing the things that you think you're supposed to do. Let's see, what do we got?
So, you know, I got a debate coming up apparently on Friday with Flo about the rich aren't paying their fair share. And he's taking, yeah. So it's interesting because I'm not for taxes, but nonetheless, I am taking that position in terms of it's more than just money. It's power and control, right? Even if we don't look at the money aspect, although we'd have to in some vein, but I'm just saying, like, a poor person who has a car and gets a speeding ticket may not be able to pay it and may lose their license and may not be able to drive and whatever. And of course you could say, well, that's their fault and they should have XYZ and they should figure a way out. And I don't disagree with that, but I'm just saying, that same rich person, you know, when I say rich, let's say billionaire, right? Let's go to the top 5,000. And they're probably not going to get a ticket, I would think. But even if they do, it's not going to affect their privilege at all. They didn't feel any of the pain. And this is one nuanced point, but I'm just saying that it might be an interesting talk that we have. Not plugging it, just thought I'd mention.
Well, yeah, I definitely want to check that out. But coincidentally, you know, synchronicity, I just got done doing some videos earlier on my Word Wizard channel where I do the definitions and etymology. Okay. And interestingly enough, we were talking about impost, you know, as relates to Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, and imposts and excises, and the imposter, because that's what you are in this legal and commercial entity system. You're the imposter unless you actually know how to run that person right from the start and can do so according to the law. You are in fact putting false liabilities on a record because you're not the one that's supposed to be doing that. And when it comes to that kind of stuff, it comes down to the term pay, which means to bring to peace, which means that if you owe a debt, meaning you haven't paid it yet, it means there's some kind of war going on.
Okay,
This is the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code, and all those forms and everything that the government instrumentalizes, known as negotiable instruments. It's literally known as the Battle of the Forms. Literally. So here's my favorite guy again, Louis DeJoy, Postmaster General of the United States Postal Service. And here we see him acting just like a little kid. Covering up his ears as if though he doesn't want to hear what's being said. How strong is the country? How strong is the Postal Service if this is who we have leading it and acting like a motherfucking child? Pathetic. Excuse my language. Louis DeJoy, you pathetic child.
Imagine this kind of behavior coming from the U.S. Postmaster General.
You, sir, do not get an A grade. You cannot give yourself that grade. Just did. You are graded by the United States people, and they don't use your service anymore.
That is not true.
You bankrupt this through your reputation only. You are responsible for the fall of the Postal Service and the lack of accountability.
Congress is responsible for the fall of the Postal Service.
So it's Congress.
I am trying to fix
on your
Postal
watch
Service
with all the AI.
Before my watch.
A guy that doesn't know how financial instruments works can't do a motherfucking thing. And I guarantee you this guy is an idiot when it comes to financial instruments. Guaranteed.
That's the same stuff happened.
With all the AI, with all the computer systems, you're worse than if I took a horse and picked up the mail and delivered it 2 miles down the road. I hope you got that on camera. This is the response that the postmaster just gave Congress when he doesn't like what he hears.
Imagine
Absolutely. You suppose that would get a good, proper response in court if you walked in as a defendant and did that because you didn't like what you heard? That's not a strong country, folks. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's you know, I've actually dealt with USPS quite a bit because I had a business where I would mail tens of thousands of dollars worth of USPS usually per year. And this is going back like 6, 7, 8 years ago. And they were fucking terrible. As far as I'm concerned, the worst postal company that there is. I mean, out of UPS and FedEx, DHL even. And anyways, I I directed myself to the postmaster a few times, not him, but of local branches. And they would play a similar game to this putting hands over ears. Essentially, nobody's there to answer the phone. You leave messages. It's I don't even know if they're real, but yeah, I'm not surprised to hear they're doing a terrible job.
Yeah, and they act like they don't know the answer. Well, I don't give a fuck if you don't know the answer. It's a postal issue. You are to know the answer, and if you don't, then you're supposed to go find out. And particularly if I give you the answer, you're supposed to research it and confirm it, not just totally ignore it. I get the same thing, brother.
Yeah.
It's pathetic. So let's take a look at another one. Her face says it all. And remember, these are the people that the voters think are running this country and that their vote counted. And if you think your vote counts and this is what you get, then how much does it really count if it does count at all?
Getting away with this for a long time.
I wanted to ask you why you and your husband back in March of 2008 accepted and participated in a very large IPO deal from Visa. At a time there was major legislation affecting the
IPO deal from Visa. And IPO is an initial public offering. In other words, before they were a private company, and now they're selling stocks.
Yeah.
MasterCard and Visa selling stocks through IPOs. This is why MasterCard and Visa cards are to be treated like credit because they're public offerings.
their credit card companies making its way through the House. And did you consider that to be a conflict of interest?
I don't know what your point is of your question. Is there some point that you want to make with that?
I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it's all right for a speaker to accept a very preferential, favorable stock deal?
Well, we did.
Well, we didn't. Yes, you did. The fuck you didn't. You legislated the law, knew what it was going to do because you legislated the law to do it, and bought in and sold out for that specific purpose. These people make millions doing this. They legislate out the plastic straws in paper wraps to invest in paper straw companies that are still packaging them in plastic wrap. They know what's coming, so they drop this investment in the plastic straw company and start investing in the paper straw company. Don't be deceived.
And you participated in the IPO.
Well, I have many
and at the time you were
investments, but I
Speaker
don't
of the
think-
House. You don't think it was a conflict of interest or had the appearance
No,
of a
it was
conflict
not.
of
It
interest?
doesn't. It only has appearance if you decide that you're going to have elaborate on a false premise.
Elaborate on a false premise. No, everything he said is fully true. You invested in a market that you were legislating because you had firsthand knowledge. This is called insider trading, and it is, in fact, illegal.
But it's not true, and that's that.
It looks like Nancy.
Just because they say it's not true. No, it is true. You can look up the records. Your records as a public official and what you invest in is open to the public for the very purposes of discerning whether you're investing fraudulently the money from the people.
Yeah.
Now, here's a good one. Yeah, that lady should... I don't know how people put up with her for so many years, but again, it's because they pat each other's backs. They're puppets for and with each other, knowing that there's a bigger game that they're keeping from the people. That's it. the legislation and knowing what's coming because they're the ones doing it.
Yeah, I mean, she is one of many examples. I'm really not up to date in the particulars these days, but I was at a certain point, and she's one of many where I question whether or not the electoral vote or, whatever, illegal, fraudulent elections are taking place. It sort of doesn't matter to me because even if democracy is real, if people are fucking dumb, like not only did she get there and many others, but not only did they get there, but they stay there instead of being tarred and feathered. I'm just saying in GTA.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I want people to recognize. There's an old adage that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. What we've got here is a bunch of horses led to a pond that they're drinking from that they shouldn't be. So let's listen to Ronald Reagan. He's got a nice one. This is a joke to kind of break up the monotony of all this insanity. Hopefully put a little smile on some people's faces because this is a great one. I love this.
A little bit here, like the man who was a farmer that was driving his horse and wagon to town for a load of grain and had a head-on collision with an automobile. And later followed the usual legal procedures with the insurance company and all, and he was on the stand and a lawyer said to him, while you were lying there at the scene of the accident, didn't someone come up to you and ask you how you were feeling? And didn't you answer that you never felt better in your life? Well, he said, I was lying there. And he said, a car came up and a deputy sheriff got out. He said, my horse was neighing with pain and kicking, had 2 broken legs. The deputy sheriff put the gun in his ear and put the horse out of his misery. He said, my dog had a broken back and was whining with pain. And he went over, did the same thing, put there and shot him. And then he came over to me and said, now, how are you feeling?
So it comes to the situation where we have a bunch of people lying because they don't want to get hurt. They think it's better to just go along and get along because
fear.
Because they see the guy down the street getting arrested. They don't want to be arrested, so they're going to do what they're supposed to. But in rather than doing anything about it and standing up for the guy, they go right back to watching their boob tube, somebody else's dramatic or exciting life. Because theirs is so exciting. They get to sit on a couch and eat all the processed foods and poison drinks.
Yeah.
Greetings, brother. How you doing tonight, the Fallen?
Doing good.
Good. You like that joke?
Well, yeah, I like that joke, but what I keep feeling within myself is like, man, this is all based on education. Right? When people are calling everybody retarded or dumb or stupid, it's like, man, in some part of it, it's they were programmed that way.
Yeah, no, that's very true. But as an adult, we have the responsibility to deprogram from bullshit. You don't have to, but right, that's on you.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I get miffed about, and is the fact that we have so many of our younger generations walking out of these high schools and they think they've been given an education that will suffice for their lifetime. And that's not so. And so they just don't pick up another book. They don't do anything inherently to shed off of that indoctrination.
Well, what you just said is like they leave out of there what they believe. And it's like, that's true. They've been programmed to believe that's what they need for their lifetime. And it's just basically that total deception.
Yeah,
and
you need to get a high school. You need to get a high school diploma so you can get a job. That's as simple as they make it. And it seems simple. And you would think, okay, great. But when you get out there and you get a job, and of course it's instituted before that, maybe you want to get a high school education so you can get a job, or maybe after high school you want to go to college so you can get a good job.
Did you hear apparently they're mandating, I can't remember the state, I don't remember, Oklahoma, I might be wrong.
Oklahoma reinstituting the Bible? For scripture?
No. I was going to say implementing a law apparently that at the age of 18, you have to either go to college or a trade school or the military, which I mean, those options sound like, sort of reasonable options roughly, but the idea of forcing them is crazy. I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely. This is
Yeah,
like the mandatory education of our children. The education of our children is in fact mandatory if you look at it in the spiritual sense. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So if you want your children to survive, you have to teach them that spiritual knowledge. This is the foundation of any teaching.
right. But I have a statement on that is that in those choices that they have, you've already been teaching that point of that it's all military to begin with. So no
Right.
matter whatever you think you're doing, if they don't understand it, they're really in military service
Yep. And
from the birth.
if you guys could excuse me real quick, I'll be right back. Go ahead and carry on the conversation. I just got to go help my companion real quick. Please and thank you.
Well, so I don't know where to go with that. How do we continue this conversation?
well, you were saying that everything is militarized.
Right. So when they're like, when you have a choice to do this or that or go into the military, that they don't tell you straight off that everything's based under admiralty law, right?
Okay.
I mean, isn't that the way the court system is, and what all is it's based on like the bar and admiralty law and going off the land onto like the water?
Maybe, but I think it's just based on power and control. I mean, roughly.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And let's see here. What's our next one? How tariffs will actually make us money. People are up in arms with President Trump coming into office again, talking about he's going to raise foreign tariffs. Okay. So let's listen to this and see if you guys comprehend tariffs right. And I may be wrong about my comprehension of tariffs too, but I don't think I am. So let's take a look.
Inflation ever because of tariffs. Trump's going to have the highest inflation ever because of tariffs.
These people are so sick. I mean, we're living through the highest inflation ever, and they say Trump will. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
Biden extended many of the tariffs, and he also increased some of them, right? So what is specifically, from a numerical standpoint, are they arguing when they say that he's going to have the highest inflation
It's a great
ever?
question. What they're assuming is that Donald Trump will slap all these tariffs on these companies with no warning, and then all the price of your goods will go up 10% overnight. It's more important to understand this. If we wanted to sell an American-made product like Ford, we are not allowed to sell our American...
Like Tesla. Let's use a more convenient type model like Tesla, the electric car, where China is wanting to take over the market of electric cars with all of their
resources.
Yeah, the resources for the batteries and everything, so that they can and there's not near enough mineral resources here on Earth to accomplish what they set out, both Tesla or China. There's not enough. It's already been determined. That's why Tesla wants to go to Mars and see if there's certain minerals on Mars that will help produce his batteries, because he needs more batteries to provide his full scope of electric cars. So if we use electric cars, it brings down the cost of American-made electric cars and raises the cost of Chinese electric cars, which allows American people to buy American-made goods cheap. And if you really want a Chinese one, which if you think it's better than Tesla is your choice, then you are willing to pay the higher price. That's what tariffs will do.
American cars in the interior of China. They will tariff them 200%. So it's time for us to start reciprocate with tariffs of our own.
Which is exactly what they do. China puts an immense tariff, international tariff, on imports from American goods. They don't want their people buying American goods. So they put an immense tariff on them to dissuade them from buying American goods. Okay?
Where does the tariff actually go? Like, who profits from a tariff?
Well, the importer pays the tariff, and they're paying it to the nation that they're importing to. So if you're going to import your product to China, the tariff goes to China as part of their gross domestic product. The financial reserves that they're supposed to go forth for their people.
So let's say you're a country and I want to sell you something, and what I make it for is like $5, and you go, hey, if you want to sell it to me, I'm gonna charge you $10 to even sell it to Keith or whatever your country is.
Right. Because if I've got a similar product that I can make for the same price or cheaper, I would want to be able to sell my own product rather than a product from somebody else.
So I don't disagree with you, what you're saying, Wizard, but I think it's a little bit of a game of checkers, the viewpoint of like, where did this tariff exactly go on this product? Given that in part, the U.S., our government, over time, has already sold the souls of Americans to China. How much do we owe them?
Absolutely. And that's what we're talking about, is a financial base.
Yeah.
The financial base is already there, folks.
Right. And by the way, on the car note, I'm a little bit of a gearhead, and I watch things here and there. Anyways, apparently China has this company BYD or something, and a reviewer that I watch, he's been reviewing some, and accordingly seem like they're coming in cheaper than Tesla, but as you're saying, wouldn't to the U.S. due to import fees. But I'm just getting that it seems that whatever China is doing, they're able to get a lot more range, power, and apparently quality over Tesla in China. It's just that the tariff would make it too expensive to have here.
Correct. And that's why I say, if it is a better quality vehicle and you want that better, then you're going to be willing to pay that tariff or wait until the tariff drops. One or the other. That's the only thing the tariff does. It's to help localize purchasing.
Yeah.
Finish it up, make sure there's nothing we missed.
Against countries that have always slapped tariffs on us. So it's a bunch of fear mongering. And I always ask people the question, if Donald Trump will give you inflation with tariffs, why was there no inflation his first term?
Trump's going to have.
Exactly. If that's the presumption, then why did it not happen the first term? And again, I'll go back to the postal issue. That's what it was all about. Other countries not paying their share for national defense, and United States providing that national defense at the expense of the taxpayers known as United States citizens. Not from other countries. So they're getting free protection. And this is a protection racket, a program of economic warfare, the Trading with the Enemy Act. Go ahead.
Well, since you said trading with the enemy, because it was like not paying their fair share when you claim that if you want a better product, you'll be willing to pay the tariff on that product. How is then war a tariff-driven entity like that?
Because it's a program of economic warfare. That last clip just explained it perfectly. It's a war of taxes to help keep purchasing localized. The more localized you're purchasing, the more power your purchase has, the more power your local economy has.
Right. So how is war then localized? Like in claiming they're not paying their fair share over there.
Through the language. people are sitting here babbling, not understanding what these financial transactions and everything are. That's that spiritual warfare of not being educated properly. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of attack the first point that was made in that video, that there was no inflation when Trump was in. And you already know my stance. I don't give a fuck about Trump or any of these dudes. But
yeah, I don't think they said there was no inflation. It's just that the inflation was already there, and it's always going to be there. That's a mechanism of the financial system. Go ahead.
Right. And I guess I'm just getting at that it seemed a little bit disingenuous the way that he presented it, given that Trump, while he was in, and I'm not even blaming him for all this, but he was the second biggest of all time addition to our total debt. And that may not convert to the kinetic energy of inflation right away, but I mean, it is what it is. So.
Well, but you got to understand too, one of the things that comes along with such large financial transactions like you're talking about, it's actually an investment. And what happens if you've got a larger investment, it tends to provide a larger potential return. And that's what they're looking for. So
a good investment would, but not a bad investment, right?
Correct.
So then we'd have to get into the quality of it. But if that was his argument, I think his name was Jack, the guy in the video. But if that was his argument, then Barack Obama would be the biggest positive debt addition, because he was the only one over Trump in terms of adding to national debt.
Correct.
And I don't think he would take that position. You see what I mean?
Right. And that's because, again, I don't think a lot of people understand the financial world, how it works. And if the people saw that for what it truly was, it was their opportunity to take grasp of that knowledge and use it for their own benefit. Like Trump said, they make this legislation and use it themselves. Why would they then turn around and accuse him of using this legislation for his own benefit when that's exactly what they do? The people should start catching on. Greetings, Jack. How you doing tonight, brother?
Blessings to you all. I'm overdue for stopping by.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Good to have you. Good to have you.
Thank you. This insanity system, if I can, I got great news tonight. I'm so friggin' excited, man.
Go ahead, share it, brother.
I don't want to do all the details, but it looks like I may be traveling to LA next month for an event I've been invited to. And I'm already thinking, how do I make even more out of this opportunity? And that got me to thinking about radical reform. That's our goal, right?
Yeah, we want to reform the radical corruption that's going on.
Right. It will take radical reform of the radical corruption. Right? Is that kind of it? And what's up, Jack? I just saw you hop on.
Yeah. To oppose a force, you have to have an equal opposed force.
Right.
So
the only thing.
So to defeat the radical corruption or the radicals, you have to be radical yourself. This is the thing about people that have critical thinking and are able to come up with abstract concepts.
Right. Now, the only problem perhaps with that train of thought is if we look at the pendulum, right, if it's all the way to the left, let's just say, and we bring it all the way to the right, then it ends up just as radical, but on the other end. And I'm not actually talking left and right. I'm just saying, so restoring balance, right, or getting to a place of balance. I'm not saying that you're wrong, by the way. I'm just talking about the terms. It seems that we do normally fight radicalism with more radicalism, and we end up in a different radicalism versus getting to a balanced, point.
Right. I kind of use the analogy of a teeter-totter. You've got a teeter-totter, and you've got one person way out at this end and one way out at this end. Those are the extremes. Those are the radicals.
Right.
If you have those two radicals come together in agreement, you end up centered on that teeter-totter, and it's much easier to balance.
See, I think that depends because it's like in that radicalism, right? Let's just say the one person on the teeter-totter on that side at the same distance is 200 pounds, and the person the same distance on the right side is 100. There's no way to balance that until the 200 pounder comes closer to the center. And it's like trying to get that to happen is where the conflict comes in to how far can.
Yeah, it ends up being more like a sumo wrestling match with you being the small guy getting thrown out of the ring. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's exactly what we're looking at. It takes it off the teeter-totter and puts it in a different jurisdiction of balance. You know, it's not a, like you said, 200 pounds on this side. It's never going to be balanced with 100 pounds on this side. So it's got to be a different fulcrum. It moves that fulcrum. So let's get on to this one. This one here, it says he made the entire CNN panel go down in history.
Now, this is an absolute classic right here. Check it out.
One of the loopholes he took advantage of when he claimed
We were just talking about this, folks.
a $1 billion loss that enabled him to avoid paying taxes.
That enabled him to avoid paying taxes. She said he used a loophole. Fine, everybody gets to use the loophole. It's the normal course of business, like I explained earlier. Nobody got hurt.
You use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes?
Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors. I know many of her donors. I pay tremendous numbers of taxes. I absolutely used it. And so did Warren Buffett. And so did George Soros. And so did many of the other people that Hillary is getting money from. She complains that Donald Trump took advantage of the tax code. Why didn't she change it? Why didn't you change it when you were a senator? The reason you didn't is that all your friends take the same advantage that I do. And I did.
Yeah, see? She was in a position to change it. But why would she change it if she's taking advantage of it? Then now that somebody else who wasn't a politician can take advantage of it, she's trying to sling mud on him for taking advantage of it. You see the insanity? It's just a puppet game. That's all it is.
It's a blame game.
Right, but I think it's that puppet game of that, whether you call them elites or not, it's like they should be teaching that stuff like in the educational system.
They
in
don't
that
want you to
aspect.
Yeah, they don't want you to know these loopholes. They will talk about loopholes all day long, but you won't know what loopholes because that's all they use is loophole. What loophole? I don't know. You have to go find it. Well, I don't know where to start. It's a loophole.
That's how
put me in a loop.
That's how they keep their authority. And I was thinking about this. Because of people's dependency on the state, every single household and person has had to burden the responsibility of individuality. We don't have communities anymore. We've got, I don't know what to call them.
Chaos.
Yeah, chaos, and that's what excuse me. That's what Base touched on earlier. When we come to age of majority, you know, are we really in touch with reality, or should we go on with a better education somewhere? Where should we get it? Should it be mandatory? Should it be institutionalized? Should it be privatized? Should it be familiarized as in a family setting? You know, what is the mandate for that? Isn't there already a mandate if the scripture says my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge? So anyway, let's finish this one up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, who does that knowledge? It's like my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, but then some people will say, well, the winners in battle write history. It's almost like who's going to decide on the mandatory, the knowledge of what would be the lack of knowledge.
Well, see, and that's part of the problem is people think that history is the base knowledge. And what they forget is that there's many things that you need to do as far as reading between the lines, you know, seeing what's there that's not said. This is why I say history That's more of a narcissistic story of a victor over a victim.
You have provisions in the tax code that frankly we could change, but you wouldn't change it because all of these people give you the money so you can take negative ads on Donald Trump.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
One of my favorites, because you'd be in jail. And I'll remind you again, folks, they ousted old Biden, put old Kamala right in there without a vote, and skipped right over Hillary. I think because she made herself a fool talking like this. She looks
Right,
like
but
a fool.
he wasn't really. I don't want to say he wasn't really even being honest, right? He was just saying that to play to the masses
No,
because
he
he
was being
wasn't really
totally
being
honest.
honest.
Yes, he was. He was telling you there's a loophole and they use it and he uses it.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about her being in jail. Like it's a good thing he's not in charge of the law, and he's like, well, because you'd be in jail. He wasn't really being honest because Hillary's his buddy or his
Right. Well, it's just that you don't go around putting political parties in jail because that looks like political warfare to keep your political parties or opponents off the ring.
But that's how it always is. It's
It
even
really
with
looks,
like,
yeah, it really looks bad.
but that's the way it is even with the fraternal order of police. It's like if they don't dig you, that's really a political battle right there, just
Yeah.
within that law and what they're doing.
Yep. So let's take a look at the next one. Why is Trump Rogan podcast missing on Google?
Rogan podcast showing on Google. Well, the top donor to Kamala is Google.
Makes complete sense.
So,
Yeah,
meaning
makes
there is a
complete
reason that somebody can speculate. Here's
So you understand that this is again about the investments. Google is invested heavily in Kamala. So why would they put her opponent's ads or anything to do with her opponent on their stuff? Makes perfect legitimate sense. And in that, you can tell who these companies vote for by who they donate to, who they support. Now watch this chart that he's going to bring up.
why this is going on. Now let's transition
And it
into.
still has 30-something million views, and
It's
you can't even
growing.
find
It still has. Or look at Google.
Oh, weird.
Look how much money they've given.
Can you see the number? What is it?
$1,464,300.
That's the most out of any company.
It's not even American Airlines is Trump's.
That's how
It's
much.
the most. All the big companies go left.
Yeah,
all of them. They're for sale.
Yeah, so we've got American Airlines, Walmart, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, United Airlines, FedEx, Wells Fargo, Johnson & Johnson, Brown & Brown, Northwest Airlines. They're on the right in the red. And then we also have on this side, we have Google, Microsoft. Then we also have Brown & Brown, Johnson & Johnson, Wells Fargo, Boeing. So Boeing and some of these others contribute to both parties. So we have to pay attention to that too. But look at how much Google donates to the Democratic Party by itself. Billions of dollars.
On the other side, Microsoft,
Nvidia,
Johnson & Johnson,
Boeing,
Apple.
everybody.
That's right. Everybody's on that side, right?
Pfizer,
Versus what they're
weird.
giving money on this side.
But these are big companies. What about big mega donors? Like some people give $100 million, don't they?
This is all about context, Adam.
No, I'm understanding that. I'm just
the context.
The context of a democracy that can be bought. See, many people believe we live in a democracy. No, we use a democratic process as a republic body of people, and everybody thinks that their vote counts. That's not the true process, folks. Again, I urge everybody to understand that a true republic is a body of people that know the law themselves and can enforce it from their end, regardless of any other legislation. And this is the ability of the people to throw off a despotic government. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, before you start, if I may, yes, the republic has fallen. And that dude, Valuetainment, Patrick Bet David or Patrick David Bet, I can't remember how I'll get it right. I want to have conversations with him about politics and economics. He doesn't understand what he's supporting. Most
Yeah,
people
and I agree. A lot of these forecasters don't. They're just taking rhetoric that they have a strong belief in and running with it, and that's their drive for any political body, any financial realm, any kind of jurisdiction that they want to dip their toes in. It's generally based on a belief, and this is why I tell people: don't believe me, don't believe your neighbor, don't believe your government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. This is going beyond the high school and picking up more books so you can learn this stuff yourself.
I know, and that's what's kind of like, in some way, like difficult, or like it's in some way can be overwhelming, because you're like wondering why you didn't get taught that, and you got taught like the total opposite, and you almost have to like unbrainwash yourself to even understand what you may read, where it makes a difference within your mind where you can act upon it. But that, like all of that stuff of like companies buying into politics, is I wonder where people are applauding that now companies are becoming the politicians, like, you know, Elon and Donald, and they're like corporation people, and claiming they're applauding them getting into politics, and they're like, in some way, don't realize they're taking like the middleman out in some way, because now business is actually the government.
Yeah, and I think most people need to understand that we're closer to what's known as a corporatocracy than anything else. You know, that's that capitalist system that's taking over things and saying that, well, as a capitalist investment for the better good of the common people, which doesn't serve the individual for his own necessary needs. It doesn't.
The religion of the world has become the money system. People have placed more faith in money than each other.
Yeah, it's that false mammon that I talk about here and there. I even mentioned it earlier in my Word Wizard video. The mammon, as opposed to the Lord's money in the parable of the talents. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, and your talents are what you're supposed to go out and share, and that's the knowledge. So again, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Need to see more of. You want to end. This is the type of schooling we need to see more of. You want to end all plastic manufacturing?
I said the plastics industry must be stopped.
That's easy to say, but what's the solution? What's going to...
And this goes to those plastic straws that were legislated out of use in paper wraps, and now we use paper straws and plastic wraps, while the entire issue of the plastics was totally ignored. And that is because the plastics issue is a very confusing and intertwined topic now, because it's so massively used in so many products for so many different reasons.
Replace your glasses. They're made of plastic.
Maybe.
No,
I don't know what they're made out of.
They are. Your water bottle in front of you. Your cell phone there. The components made out of it's not plastic. Where'd you fill that water bottle up?
A water filling station.
And it was delivered by a drink station that was plastic?
I didn't check.
The edges are. The piping coming to it. Now, you have a couple of choices with the piping. We could go back to using wood, but then you have to line it in chemical. Or we could go back and use lead. That was harmful. We go back to copper, but copper has to be mined, and everybody wants to stop mining in the U.S. The shoes you have on your feet, the soles of those shoes are plastic. So we talk about Indian plastic manufacturing, and everybody in here cheers when you say that, but everybody here is depending on plastic. So if you want to end it, then quit using it.
Absolutely. So if you think the government is no good for you and is not a valid system for you to use, then quit using it.
Absolutely. Because just like he was saying that lead was proven to be bad for you, so will PVC.
Yep.
Will be proven to be bad for people. It already really is being proven to be bad for people. The Alzheimer's and all of that stuff. Getting your water through PVC pipe instead of lead just is a different, like, demon in itself, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead, Jack.
The reality is, though, in the pursuit of profits, these employees of corporations in whatever position it is. CEO is an employee. These employees of corporations knew there was toxins in many of their actions, and they hid behind secrets, non-disclosure agreements, pay for false evidence, right? Because of the
just like the CDCC and the WHO and everything over these COVID-19 vaccinations and everything, you know, people were screaming out right from the start, and they started shutting people down and censoring them. Come to find out, those people are absolutely correct and true. So what are they going to do about all those people that lied and committed genocide against the Nuremberg Code? And I'll remind you, in the very beginning of January 2020, I put out my caveat to the world as it relates to the first of the 10 points of the Nuremberg Code and these vaccinations. No. The voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. So if I say no, I mean no. I don't give a fuck what your mandate says. And I haven't.
But that's how they played on people too. I mean, even with their jobs and stuff was like, well, we're not forcing you to do it. You're willfully doing it, but you won't have a job if you don't do it. Or, you know, and then claiming, but we didn't really force you to do it. You did that willfully.
And that is Satan standing there saying, I will destroy everything in your life. And when I'm done, will you still bow to God, or will you then bow to me? And what did J.O.B., Job, do? He gave up that job and he remained Job.
The day is coming soon, brother. The day of our Lord. It is soon. It is upon us. I'm excited.
Soon, I hope. Yeah, I hope I get to experience it too, Jack.
Well, here's because it goes with what you said. Every single person is going to be responsible for the choices they made, whether they're held accountable or not. And it's time for the American people to wait to get in front of the people in D.C. and get their attention.
Yep.
I have a statement, though. This is my statement to like you and Jack. When you say the day of the Lord, in some way, I mean, within ourselves, is that not every day?
Yes, it is. The day I'm talking about is where the truth is no longer deniable.
Correct. Yep. So let's get into Joe Rogan and how Obama lied on Trump. And a lot of people like to lie on Trump, and I'm sure there's a lot of lies that Trump puts out too. It's kind of hard to catch them all, but this is another reason why I just don't vote. Why would I vote for somebody that's known to lie? It's one of my biggest peeves is why would you lie?
Obama did it, and it's disgusting. It's a disgusting lie. Let's play it.
Said that there were very fine people on both sides of a white supremacist rally.
So he's saying he attended a rally that was a white supremacist rally. And that is the lie. It was not a white supremacist rally. It was a rally in which certain white supremacists did attend. But just because they attended this rally, Trump didn't shut it down. He didn't violate their rights to attend the rally and possibly find something that would change their mind about being white supremacists. He kept the rally going for the intents and purposes of your right to know, despite the attendance of any white supremacists.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides. I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists.
So he admitted he knew they were there, but again, like I said, he didn't shut it down just because they were there. And they're slamming him and saying he was for this white supremacist rally. That's not what the rally was. That's a lie.
Right, but see what really gets me. I don't know why I'm led to say this, but it's almost like that goes back to like the scripture thing, like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's like in that deception, it's like there always has to be that deception in there to get people to think. It's like Obama did, but that was a white supremacist rally. It's like, hey man, you either this, that's a lie. You'll never die. You'll not do this. It has to add that deception in there for people to be deceived.
Sometimes it's hard to know what is truth and lies in this world of lies and deception. The key is peace. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You're right. The key is to find peace, and the key in finding peace is being able to put the pieces together. That's the words. Every one of us has been indoctrinated and induced into this language that's so colorful without anyone explaining us the various different colors that we can use in it. Nobody really taught us how the colors are used. They just taught us to color inside the lines.
So do you think that people, it's almost like judge people on their actions, not on their words. It's almost like people should really stop talking and just be who they are. Just
Right,
do what they do and act how they act.
But in that, this language system and the way it works implies that acting in a similar function can be taken as that same public duty. This is why you have to express yourself. You have to express the reality. You can't just let the reality exist and the presumptions ride. You have to be able to break those presumptions to assert your authority. And the only reason we have to assert authority is because somebody else is trying to assert authority over us. We shouldn't be asserting authority over others. We should only be asserting our authority that says, no, you don't have authority over me.
So that's actually defending your authority then? Or do you think that's asserting your authority?
It's asserting your authority. The true authority needs no defense. The truth needs no defense. The providence of his grace needs no defense. It is.
See, that's crazy. I have never seen that last part of it
because the news has said that lie over and over and over and over.
And they say it over and over and over again. They rerun that clip over and over and over again, and nobody catches the idea that, hey, there was something else to that.
Hey,
so that's the lie by omission, as well as the lie by converting, saying that the rally was a white supremacist rally. That's a conversion of what really was, and then they omitted the end, which allows for a greater deception.
It comes back to where this idea comes back to what the Fallen mentioned earlier. History is written by the victor. If you consider the news reporting on history near time happening, and we know the news is lying, we got to realize we're not winning, right?
Yeah, it's like I said earlier. How can we be a strong nation if this is the kind of shit we see? We're not winning shit. We're losing everywhere we look. If we're paying all of the defense for pretty much 28 nations, how is that a win?
It's not.
If we've got people that are on the legislature, the House and Senate and all this that are inside trading when it's illegal, how is that a win? It just isn't.
Listen, it takes a lot of faith to be an atheist, and this is
okay. This is in regards to the last video where they tried to disparage him as a white supremacist, and now he's going to rebut it. Pay attention. And again, I'm not a fan of any politician. I'm a fan of the truth and how things are said and played out. And that's all I'm doing here is reviewing how this is going to play out. Donald Trump mocks Kamala. Trump shuts down the white supremacy question in a comical way.
is the moment former US President Donald Trump laughs off criticism on visiting a Michigan city that has historic white supremacy ties.
Okay, so I'll have to read the question. That didn't come out volume-wise. It says muted audio. It says, reporter, Mr. President, can you respond to Kamala Harris campaign mocking you for being in this town because they say there were white supremacists here a month ago? Pay attention.
Who was here in 2021?
Joe Biden.
You used a loophole. Well, so did you. You visited a white supremacist town. Well, so did you. You see how this plays out? It's nothing but a puppet game. They're tossing a hot potato, pointing fingers at each other. It's just a game, folks.
I know, it's almost like it's just the part that like loses me in watching all this stuff is because it's like it's just scripted. She's going to ask the question, he's going to answer that way, and people are going to think this, and then other people are going to go that way on what this person said, and it's just like you said, it's just like they're puppets, and it's that marionette thing, just like jacking with the audience.
When you find out through enough experience of watching this stuff how each one goes, you will see it play out over and over again. The exact same thing. He said, she said. Tag, you're it. Hot potato. The same thing over and over. That's all it is. So you can literally start projecting and predicting outcomes simply by knowing the lie and the truth. Go ahead, Jack.
And then the other part to that, while they're playing these stupid, blame games, you got to wonder what is not being reported. What are we missing?
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was saying earlier about reading between the lines and seeing what's there that isn't stated. We've got to learn how to do that, because when we see things in that perspective, we've got a better tool in our box to be able to circumvent those kind of disasters or detriments for ourselves. We're better able to avoid them.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And that's simple. Who is here in 2021? Joe Biden. There you go. There's your answer. Don't play games. And this is why. Pay attention to this little video clip. Evidently, the term fake news came from Donald Trump.
Well, he has XYZ amount of felonies charged, 91, 53 were dismissed, 32 is this, and 12 are the ones that are remaining. I think the only one that Letitia James, Jack Smith, and maybe...
Sounds kind of like me and on my record, huh, guys?
Maybe even Fanny, if they wanted to claim that you did commit a crime, is you kind of did kill mainstream media, if you think about it. I did. That could be a crime for those guys.
Murdered them. Murdered them.
Very proud of it.
And I want to show you this clip because this is the first time ever the phrase fake news was ever used. From this moment on is when the decline started. Rob, if you can go on and play this clip.
Can you state, Mr. President-elect, go ahead. Can you state categorically,
asking a question.
Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
And that's a great term, fake news, but it's not strong enough. I think it's corrupt news is a better.
You like that, huh, Jack?
He knows it's corrupt news.
So do we.
His buddies are the corruption.
Yep, and so do we. That's why we like that term better too, right, Jack?
You know what?
Sometimes you can't do anything but agree with them, Jack.
They're very good at their games, but
see, I agree with that they're very good at their game. So I mean, it's just like for me, it's like when they start doing that, then they're just trying to switch the narrative, because then they're like, oh, well, that's fake news. Look over here for your news. And then when people start looking over there for their news, they're just as fake. They're just leading them down that fake trail to somewhere else, thinking, oh, you're on the inside now, but you're really just as controlled because you're listening to who they want you to listen to.
Yep. And when we talk about listening to people, one of the reasons I do listen intently to Donald Trump is because of his rhetoric that you don't get from other presidents. Even Ronald Reagan, as Christian and outspoken as he was, does not speak of the scripture, God, and Jesus like Trump does. So please pay attention to this one.
You guys know Trump said this much about Jesus?
Our country needs a savior right now, and our country has a savior. And that's not me. That's somebody much higher up than me. Much higher up. But the life and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ forever changed the world. It's impossible to think of the life of our own country without the influence of his example and of his teachings. But none of this could have ever happened without Jesus Christ and his followers and his church. None of it. And we have to remember that Jesus Christ is the ultimate source of our strength and of our hope. Let us thank Almighty God for our nation, for our precious freedoms, and our most of all, and I have to say this, for the gift of God's everlasting mercy and grace. We ask God to bless our nation and our people with faith and hope and love and peace.
Share this video so the truth can reach more.
And so when we listen to it, I hope you guys can hear it, because every other president I've heard speak about God, Christ, or the scriptures, it was a speech written down by somebody else. And I'm pretty sure from listening to this, this is something that may have been written down as a speech, but it wasn't written by somebody else. This is something that I think that was written directly by Trump, which I think he does a lot of. I think he does a lot of his own speech writing.
Hey, El Perro. The similarities between you and him, the thought came up, yes, God is using us all as examples. And those words, I'm grateful to have seen those words. Thank you. God is so good, man. This is God's realm, not devil's realm, not man's realm.
Correct. And this is, if you guys want to take the time to go check out, oh goodness gracious, let me look it up. It's a song called Voice of Truth, and it's by Casting Crowns. Casting Crowns, as in the crown. Casting the crown. You cast your crown upon your heirs, casting crowns. In that, there's a song, this group, Casting Crowns, that wrote Voice of Truth. I urge you to go listen to Voice of Truth by Casting Crowns. And that's what I hear more representative-wise when I listen to Trump and these kind of speeches. So again, despite the fact that I'm not a political-minded guy, I do listen to politicians, I do listen to businessmen, I do listen to religious leaders, and I listen to the rhetoric they use. I listen to the language, and I seek out its origins and intents. And everything I see coming from Trump, especially in the debates, and he's quick. I mean quick when it comes to people like Kamala and Biden and Harris and Clinton, when they try to disparage him, Obama, and he's quick with the instant reply. And it's because I think he already knows the answer, kind of like I do, I think, in that when people start using ad hominems and false arguments, they've already lost. And so all you have to do is state the obvious. The obvious seems to be an objective truth in reality. Go ahead.
Right, but it's like, I don't know whether this gets me like in hot water or not, but it's the same thing with hypocrisy. It's like, that's what trips him up a lot with Trump, I think, is because that hypocrisy is just like, you can hammer somebody with hypocrisy really quick. And I think that's what Trump's able to do because in the way he's done things, not being a politician, but being a businessman, and them being politicians and being subject to all of that bot power or influence. And when they try to say, oh, he's a bad dude, it's just so quick just to go, like he said, well, who was here in 21? It's like, that's all you have to do with the hypocrite. It's just
Exactly. Pointing out the obvious, which is their hypocrisy, their lies, their fallacies, their defaults, their character misgivings. You know, when somebody starts using ad hominems, that's the first sign of a character misgiving that says they've already lost track and they have no real foundation. If they can't stick with the topic of discussion and make a valid point and rather go to a false argument or an ad hominem or something, projections and shit, that shows you that they had no foundation to begin with. So let's look at the next one. It says you simply cannot deny his logic. And you know me, I love logic, so let's take a look.
It's up to his generals, and they still decided to proceed. Tells you everything you need to know.
Taliban is here, ISIS is here, and they're fighting each other. I said, why don't you let them fight? Why are we getting in the middle of it? They're both already.
Just like I mentioned with Ukraine and Russia, why are we getting in the middle of it and then implementing the program of economic warfare known as trading with the enemy to seize foreign assets of Russians here on American soil in order to pay for it? Along, of course, with the tax money from the taxpayers that aren't even Russians.
Enemies. Let them fight, sir. We want to do it. They go in and they end up fighting both of them. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
The fact that Trump brought this up.
Exactly. Why are we getting involved? Well, it's because we that foment this international industry of military defense for all these nations, while we pay for it, again, as taxpayers, of course. So it truly is that program of economic warfare that is fomented through the New World Order known as the United States, the corporatocracy that we are really close to, that is using a democratic process to allow you to think your vote counts. And if it does, this is what it counts for, folks. Go ahead, brother.
right. I think it's the same as him making those questions, but him disregarding like who formed the Taliban, who formed that, where did they come from, who created that entity, and then them fighting each other. It's like, why would we be getting involved? Is because I think in some way they may have had a hand in creating that.
Well, yeah,
and
that's
so they're trying to control it.
Yeah, that's the program of economic warfare used worldwide as the New World Order through NATO alliances. That's why Trump was bitching and moaning about no other countries paying. Why is it just the United States? If they really want protection, Ukraine included, if they become part of NATO,
Right, but a
then
lot
they
of
have
them
to
could
pay
be
for it.
right, but a lot of them could be saying we're not paying for it because you started it. It's that same
Well,
kind of thing. It's like,
no. If you're going to be part of that NATO alliance, then you have to pay for that protection. It is a protection racket.
okay, I get that part.
So if they take over and institute a new government in Ukraine to help stabilize Ukraine and become part of that NATO alliance, they have to pay for their protection. Right? Why would a European Union company? Why would a European Union company, corporate state, say, "Well, I just don't want to pay"?
Well, no, it's because of that protection racket. It's like, let's just go back to the mob. So these countries are like going, hey, man, let's like the dude on the corner that owns the pizza restaurant going, man, I'm not paying. I'm not paying.
Well,
And
then
they
you're
come in
no,
and wreck his
then
joint.
you can't keep going to NATO and vying for their protections. You see what he's saying? If you want protection from NATO, you have to pay for it. That's what taxes are for. It's for the protections from war.
Right, but some of it is also misplaced force upon those countries to pay for that. Going, hey, we're going to start a conflict.
No. They agreed to be part of NATO. If that's the agreement, then you have to partake. You can't say, I don't want to pay, but I want to partake. It's a pay-to-play scheme. Go ahead, Jack.
It is a pay to play scheme. It's a racket, and the U.S. has been leading this militarization and commercialization since it was founded.
Absolutely.
That's why they're supporting Ukraine, so that they have a record that they already paid. Now Ukraine owes. You want protection? You're going to get it from us because you owe us.
That's exactly it. And then these corporations are already working on contracts of rebuilding, cleaning up, right?
Absolutely. It's all a performance, guys. Every last bit of it. So let's go on to the next one. And this is as it relates to Elon Musk and this political execution of this corporatocracy. His investment, like I mentioned earlier, wanting to go to Mars, so he's got SpaceX and all this other stuff, right? He's very heavily invested in technology. And again, if America keeps that technology localized and at home, it's going to be much cheaper, first and foremost. So there's a lot at stake, not just because of the tariffs, but because of a connection with somebody that's very financially developed and can help foment that program of buying localized much better than any other president, because they refuse to work with people like Elon.
Like, basically, we want to send a message to the politicians to say that the people care about the Constitution, because there have been all these attacks on the Constitution. They've been, especially on the Democrat side, they've been repeatedly saying that the First Amendment is an obstacle, and they're claiming, oh, the First Amendment is enabling disinformation, misinformation. And I'm like, yo, there's a reason for the First Amendment, like freedom of speech. The reason that the founders of the country put the freedom of speech there is because they came from countries where if you spoke your mind, you would get shot or imprisoned. That's why the First Amendment exists.
And again, I'll reiterate that First Amendment, my right to express myself, is only important to myself and enforced because everybody else is right out there to know, which is so much more powerful as a collective than me as a singular.
Absolutely. And I think that's why the politicians, in some ways, they'll either agree with it or disagree, but then in their mind, your freedom of speech, they could claim, gives me the right to lie. I have the freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want to say, and then they try to quantify it only, well, you can't like cause fear mongering and stuff, or like yell fire in a crowded theater, but in that freedom of speech, I have the right to be deceptive. I have the right to speak however I want to speak to this other person and get them to do what I would like them to do, like Elon saying when he's claiming that freedom of speech in certain people's I almost want to say demeanor or something, and how they're going to use that, as in that I have the freedom to speak.
Well, listen to what he says after this. What do you got, Jack?
I'll come back, please.
Okay. because we're going to finish up this one here real quick. It's pay attention what he says after he speaks on the First Amendment.
And the Second Amendment is there to stop the tyranny of government. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, is there to protect freedom of speech. You know, and I've had these debates, especially with people in LA, because they're like, want to take everyone's guns away. And I'm like, yo, can you guarantee me that the government, that we will never have a tyrannical government in the United States? Can you make that guarantee? But like, well, nobody can make that guarantee. I'm like, then we need to keep our guns. Like,
I think it's pretty simple. I agree totally. Those things were instituted in that form and manner for this specific reason. And if you destroy them, then you destroy your own ability to throw off that despotic government. You then give up that right in the First Amendment. And if you don't have that right in the First Amendment, then you don't have the second right to uphold that First Amendment right.
That is the reasoning behind that.
Very much so.
Because what we were talking about earlier, when I was saying, do you defending it? When I was talking to you and you said, no, you're, I'm kind of losing track of it, but I was like, are you actually defending your right or whatever? And you're like, no, you're expressing your right. So even in that Second Amendment, it's not even the right to defend yourself. It's more of a right to express yourself.
Correct. Correct. And I think that's an important distinction here to make, that's actually what ties that First and Second Amendment together, is that expression. Because if your expression is no good in the First Amendment as a written or verbal or oral speech of some sort, as a matter of redress of grievance against the government, then your next expression is the violent physical one to throw off that despotic government.
That's the progression.
You have no recourse other than to do that.
Well, I hold faith that this is our time. Our time is coming. And this First Amendment, freedom of speech is so important for the development of knowledge. And there's lots of efforts being made to limit what can and cannot say, right? We're facing this reality right now. Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they both lack accountability for the words they share. So many lies, right? Manipulation, deception, that's become the American way. And it's hidden behind these positions of authority that people aren't held accountable. It's a bunch of crap.
It comes down to the accountability. I agree. You know, and this is why I say it's so important for you to step up to your accountability so you can correct yourself, so you can see the errors that go on around you. Next one here we got CNN host all cry over Trump. And some more CNN insanity. CNN's one of the greatest, aren't they?
All I have to say is, thank goodness for the internet.
On the day Donald Trump leaves office, the Justice Department may indict him.
Very strongly in favor of indicting the president when he is out of office.
I don't think the incoming president should be threatening his political opponents with jail time.
It's okay to go ahead and indict him. But when it comes to Trump making accusations against his political opponents, all of a sudden, no, I don't think he should be doing that. You see how their rhetoric switches?
That's not the kind of talk we should hear from a president in a democracy.
All I have to say is...
That's not the kind of rhetoric we should be hearing from a president in a democracy. Yet they're willing to spew it for every other president but Trump. I hope you guys are catching this. Here's one, Robert De Niro. I don't know if you guys know Robert De Niro and his far left bullshit, but let's take a look.
Those who say, I don't like the guy, but I'm going to vote for him. What's your message to them?
I don't understand it. I don't think they understand how dangerous it will be if he ever, God forbid, becomes president.
Again, one of those things that he's saying after Trump already served a full presidency, of which none of the rhetoric that they are still spewing ever happened.
I don't think they really understand. And historically, from what I see, even in Nazi Germany, they had it with Hitler. They don't take him serious. He looks like a clown, acts like a clown. These guys, I don't know why they look like clowns. They somehow that element of society identifies in some ways with them, but it would be chaos beyond our imagination. There's no mystery about him. He's right out front. And what he says is what it'll be.
Well, Elon Musk saw that clip. He wrote this, Trump was actually already president for 4 years, and his policies bore no resemblance to those of Hitler, so this makes no sense. In fact, with the Abraham Accords, he made some progress towards peace in the Middle East, which was definitely not high on Hitler's agenda.
Yeah. Hey, why do people even, this is what gets me. It's almost like, why do people, because like Robert De Niro, it's like, why does anybody take him seriously? That dude's an actor, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and he's like, take me serious. And it's like, when he's talking, it's almost like a projection. It's
But
like, that's what drives me crazy, is because like,
but generally you're posing that people should take the advice of politicians in this kind of a forum. But Ronald Reagan was an actor. Carter was a peanut farmer. And here now we have Trump, who was a real estate mogul. These people were not all politicians.
Right. And that's what's weird, is all those actors were actors. And they're coming on there telling everybody else how to think or what to do. And it's like, you're an actor. You can't be taken seriously about anything that you say.
Well, and I don't know if I take seriously much of anything that somebody says that is getting wet cigars from underneath his desk. Good old Bill Clinton.
Regarding De Niro's words of Trump, I mean, if you look at the Heritage Foundation and his association to them, the plans that they've put out, there's some serious intentions of tyranny, like even worse than the past. And, even in the lies, there is truth to be found.
Yep. And I just got to warn you with that term, intentions of tyranny. That's a hard one, Jack. I could see evidence or trace elements of tyranny through the corruption, which is obvious. Yes.
Okay.
But the intent is lacking yet, and when we can prove that, then they can be hung up. Until then, we've got to give them opportunity to cure.
They're capitalizing on the systems and the opportunities that are there. They see what would be best suited for themselves.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily tyranny. It's like I said earlier, if you're going to hand responsibilities over to somebody else so that they can hold them in their interest, and really think that they're going to hold them in your interest, you've been bedazzled. So, all right, here's the next one. Something about getting offended. Politician shreds woke reporter.
What this man said is considered controversial these days.
I would do anything for my child. Every person in this room who has a child has had that thought sincerely and meant it, but you don't mean it literally, right? If your child says, Dad, I want to take an umbrella and go up on top of the roof and jump off it, or if he says, Dad, I want to go play in the middle of a 4-lane highway, we're not going to allow those things to happen. We're not going to do those things. We're not going to go along with them. And what you expect us to believe is that it is somehow life-saving and affirming to poison and mutilate. I don't need to go to school for 8 years and become a doctor to know that's BS. And I refuse to participate. I'm not adopting your language. I'm not respecting your preferences. You don't own reality. You're not important enough to provide me with an instruction manual on how to talk to you. Are you kidding? What this years and become a doctor to know that's BS. And I refuse to participate. I'm not adopting your language.
I'm not adopting your language. And this is what it's all about, folks. They get you to adopt language without knowing how to use it, and without explaining that there are many different forums where that language is used differently. And that's done through adoptions. You're adopting a language that's deceitful, very colorful. And again, like I said earlier, they teach you how to color within the lines, but they don't teach you what the coloring itself is all about and what it means. So yeah, you have to understand, and this is talking about the trend, the transgender, inhibitors that they use for puberty blockers for those that want to change their sex. You can't do that, folks. And to think that you should go ahead and allow your children to make that decision of changing their sex when you can't do that, and then give them hormone blockers that are literally killing them because they provide an expectation that they can change their sex, and then when they go on and they block their puberty and find out later on that they can't change their sex and it doesn't have the effect that they thought it would be, and now they're killing themselves. Why would you do that? It's disgusting, like he said. My opinion only, of course.
Well, my opinion is that I would agree to that. Killing themselves is like what they were discussing about the stoppage of I don't know if I can say it, but suicide. And so
Yeah,
give
don't,
all these
hey,
people this
listen,
fast track.
and listen, guys, this is my platform, and even though it's on YouTube, when we discuss things in reality, it's called illusion. It's called playing with reality. That's all it is. This is a metaverse. It's still just a game. Okay? There is no legality here. Ain't nobody accusing anybody of anything. Ain't nobody using vulgar language. We're using it for conversation, commentary, opinion, education, our freedom of expression, and your right to know. So when we say things like suicide, murder, COVID-19, vaccinations, we are doing so because we have a right to use those words. Go ahead, brother.
The First Amendment.
Correct.
Okay, so in that aspect, it's like that's it. It's like it's almost like providing them a faster track to it instead of allowing them to work through it. It's like let's do puberty blockers, and then they find out that that doesn't change anything. It's almost like sets them on a faster track.
Correct.
To
I'll agree.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree. It brings to the forefront the realization of the false expectations. Absolutely, I agree. And I think we need to do that to the adults. The adults that don't get that. It should have been brought to their attention a long time ago, but yet here we have adults as couples, man and woman, agreeing together that it's a good idea. When when we hear the old adage that two heads are better than one. I'm finding it hard to believe in modern times. So anyway, on the way out, we've got another one. Again, I think Reagan being in the movie industry and everything has a more comedic aspect. So we're going to listen to another joke from Ronald Reagan.
This joke is that the more time passes, the better it gets.
Did you hear the story about the kid who was outside the Democratic fundraiser selling kittens? When the people came out from the fundraiser, he was holding up the kittens and he was saying, "Buy a Democrat kitten." Well, a couple of weeks later, the Republicans held a fundraiser in the same place. And when they came out, there was the same kid with the kittens. And he said, "Buy a Republican kitten." And one of the members of the press who'd seen him there 2 weeks before said, "Wait a minute, kid. You were selling these kittens the last time as Democrat kittens. How come the Republican kittens now?" Kid says, "Because now they got their eyes open."
Wake up, people. Wake up. That was funny as hell.
That
I
was
love
funny because I was chuckling right along with you.
Yeah.
But it's like almost in that chuckling, it was like, here's a person in politics being the president and using that platform to be a stand-up comedian. So it's
Absolutely,
like, to me, it was funny all the way around.
and it sent a simple message to everybody, whether you're Democrat or Republican. It's time to wake the fuck up. Everybody's the same. It's just different stages. It's that born alive infant, a member of the human species, born alive at any stage of development. We're all the same, folks. We're all spiritual. Okay, so the last one I've got for tonight, and I want to thank everybody again for joining me. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there in the details section for anybody who wants to share some love. All is appreciated greatly. And the last one, as we walk out the door, I want everybody to pay attention to this man's message, because I think it is profound, objective, and very realistic. When I was talking earlier about your local community having the most power, is only substantiated by being founded on the right principles. So please pay attention.
From most, I'm different from most of the people that I know in this sustainable humane food movement, in that I am one of the good old boys that produced food industrially, and then I went commando. And I still talk to those people. They're still my friends. And one of the things that they say is, well, I mean, what you're doing is fine, Will, but you can't feed the world like that. And my response is, I don't know that I'm supposed to feed the world. I think I'm supposed to feed my community. We have about 120 employees. We're the largest private employer in any of these counties around here. We have bought a number of houses and storefronts and lots in Bluffton. About 10 of these houses we've renovated for the purpose of employee lodging. These next 3 houses belong to me. I've got my livestock manager and farm events manager live in that house. My organic farm manager and his wife live in that house. And my poultry manager and his wife live in that house. So John Muir has told us that in nature, when you pull a string, you see that everything is connected. There's no reason to believe that the health of the soil is not connected to the health of the community. In rebuilding the soil, we are rebuilding a farmer middle class. Just about everything I see makes me feel good. It makes me feel good to see these eagles flying across. It makes me feel good to see the squirrels playing in the trees. It makes me feel good to see all these animals, both wildlife and farm animals, expressing instinctive behaviors. I think it's healthy for me and my family and my employees and my customers to eat food that's raised like this. It is food as nature intended food to be. The expression is, I get paid for what I was made for. Technically, I work 16 hours a day, because 16 hours a day, I'm on this farm. If I'm not physically on it, I'm thinking about it, but I don't feel like I work at all. I would do for free what I do for a living.
Which brings up this aspect of the cost of living, which came about at the end of the Stone Age, about 11,000 years ago, when man centralized into local communities and started creating agricultural societies. And they started this because of their knowledge of moving across land as transients during the Stone Age. They collected and gathered information and found out that that information individually works better when it's put together collectively. In that collectiveness, that's the strength. What we've done is gone beyond that collectiveness and made it a cost of living, which is a commercial aspect. If we can get back to that centralized form of an agriculturalist society that depends upon itself. And in this situation, we see a society such as that that's living within another community, as they talk about having a certain location where there's farmland and stuff, and having housing in the community that they bought and repurposed for employee housing. So it's
Do
a
you think it
community
would
within
be
living within a community. Go ahead.
do you think it would be wrong for me to claim that like that guy has himself a plantation?
Yeah, that's basically what it is, and it's indentured servitude. And the indenture is a self-investment, and this is reflected through employee housing, employee benefits of the agriculture that they work their sweat equity labor to get. It doesn't cost them money. It's exchanged for their sweat equity. It is the equity for their talents. It is the payment for their talents. It's the Lord's money for their talents. It's the part of prosperity and abundance so that you may go forth and multiply and replenish the earth.
So why do you think that plantation got such a bad rap?
I think Nude Guru put it correct. Plantation, a planned nation. In those small communities during the beginning of the agricultural societies, at the end of the Stone Age, the beginning of the Iron Age, man didn't really plan a nation until later on, and they realized how much a larger society has an advantage of control and power over the smaller societies. That's the thing about a nation. When a collective society of people, just like in the natural world, a tribe of lions has a certain territory. Now that territory usually encompasses the size of the tribe, or the pride of lions. So if you have a small pride, they have a small territory. If that pride grows and grows and grows, they need a larger territory, so they've got to take over somebody else's territory, usually a smaller pride. So I don't think it comes about as a planned nation, except in the fact that people now do that. And that's because of the fact that we're dominions. We're the dominant creatures, and we have this different thought process. Otherwise, animals never really think about it. It just happens as a matter of course of nature. And in that course of nature, it also reverts itself. Just like any government that people have provided so far. None has been successful. All have failed. History repeats itself. And this form of government too shall fail. In my opinion, of course. My strongest opinion. And with that, we come to the end of our insane political corruption, delusion, whatever you want to call it. Again, I'm not of a political interest other than to watch what's going on and show other people what I see in it. Go ahead.
Oh, you just had me laughing better than Reagan had me laughing and what you were saying, because it's just like, yeah, it's hilarious when you think about it.
Well, it's like I was talking with Based Oracle earlier. It's if you think your vote counts so much that you're willing to bow down and put your vote for another man to take upon the responsibilities that you should be taking on, then you're the beta cuck. You're the bitch-ass slave. And I'm not saying anything I haven't admitted to myself. I used to be a bitch-ass slave without even voting, simply by thinking that everything applied to me when it didn't. And that was the inducement of that public education, thinking that everybody that told me I had to have that education so I'd get a job. And that if I wanted a good job, I had to get a further education known as higher education in college. When in fact, that's why they call it high school. Anyway, Anything on the way out, brother?
No, I just think high school was reefer madness.
Yeah.
But anyway, peace be with you, man.
All right. You too, brother.
All right. All right.
Thanks for stopping up, and you're always welcome. In the meantime, you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you, and have a good night. Bye now.